Hey, Singers from Levels here with an achievement walkthrough for Exo-Calibre. The game is developed by Vampixel, published by East Asia Soft, released on June 25th, 2025. And thanks to East Asia Soft for providing us with the review code. So this is a basic shmup game. We play the story mode. I didn't try the other pilots, but I thought the first one was pretty decent. And in story mode, you have infinite lives. Even though it says lives 3, once the lives run out, it just stays at 0. Like you never really die. And you boost with LT, you shoot with RT, and you use the X for melee attack, which can reflect bullets. And you have to collect a bunch of scraps. But scraps are like, you get a lot after defeating a boss, so that one is pretty much unmissable. The missable ones are for killing a bunch of enemies using the boost. I think it's 20 enemies using the boost, and then reflecting 100 bullets and stuff like that. Some of these achievements are not shown on this video because I only show the successful runs of my play. But just be aware that it is in one playthrough, so you can't do like 10 now and then do another 10 later in the second playthrough or something like that. You have to do it in one playthrough. Each level consists of the initial beginning, and then there's like middle, little bit harder section. I think that's where the checkpoint is. Sometimes these people come out, and your other pilot friends will come out and talk to you. And then after that section, there's a boss section, and then right before the boss section also there's gonna be some talking. These are checkpoints, so whenever you die, you will start from there. And it's pretty easy, I think, except for maybe the last area. I found the game fairly easy. There is no like what do you say, the difficulty for story mode, but I didn't find it all that difficult. Your mileage may vary, of course, depending on your skill at shmups. If you're really terrible at shmups, then it may be a little bit tough, but you do have upgrades available to you, so you can upgrade your health. Right now you start at 3, but you can upgrade it up to 7, I think. I got up to 6 myself. I ran out of money because I focused on the attack upgrades. I figured faster I kill the enemy, the less bullets they're gonna shoot at me. This is a great place for reflect. Like, just keep reflecting. You can get about 10-15 easily here. But during the boss fight, some of the bosses shoot like 20-30 bullets all at once towards you. Like here you see a bunch of bullets coming to me, and I already got the achievement here. As you can see, I did die twice in the lives 1. So yeah, and then killing the boss, which is coming up very soon, will get you a bunch of scraps, and getting those scraps are used for upgrading. So my recommendation for upgrade is 1 in speed, a little bit faster, doesn't hurt. But I recommend you focus on the weapon first. Every upgrade can be upgraded to 5 max. So I recommend you really get like 2 upgrades for weapon first, and then maybe HP once, and then speed, and more upgrades for weapons. And then once weapon is maxed out, you might want to try upgrading HP. I thought the speed wasn't all that important in this game. This pilot ship is fast enough. You can use the melee in all directions. It doesn't have to be to the front only. It does require a little bit of time to recharge after using, so you can't just mash X. And when you're boosting with LT, you're invincible, so you can just go through stuff. So that's what makes this game very easy. The boost meter on the bottom right it's quite long. You can boost for quite a while before you have to stop. And that's basically it. If you're stuck on any level and need like pointers on how to get through some stage, the chapter select is there, so just go for that. And yeah, I think I can end the commentary here and let you enjoy the rest of the video. After this first boss, you'll get to the upgrade shop. As I said, buy some weapon upgrades, and then continue on. You'll be much stronger, the game will be much easier. All the enemies appear at the same place, so if you do die, try to memorize them and get through the levels. It should take you maybe an hour. It took me about 45 minutes to complete this. So yeah, good luck. Thanks for watching. I'm Sangrias. Like, share, comment, and I'll be back with more videos very soon.